Hello and welcome to my presentation about India for Political Science 1150. First of all, I would like to mention the diversity in India. India is the 7th largest country in the world by geographic area, and it is the 2nd in terms of population size. It has a population of 1.4 billion people, with numerous ethnic groups, religions, and languages. In ancient history, including the Bronze Age up to the medieval period and early modern age, India was the site of various empires. And these empires had rulers of multiple different ethnic groups and came from different regions. There were Buddhist leaders, Hindu leaders, and Muslim leaders. So even in the past, India was very pluralistic. Around the year 1500, the Portuguese started their conquest of India when Vasco da Gama circumnavigated Africa to find trade routes from Europe. Portugal did not decolonize the area that is present-day Goa, India, until 1961. The British East India Company came in around the year 1600, and they had a trade monopoly granted to them by the state of Great Britain. In the year 1857, the British Raj took over and began the age of formal empire, in which India was a formal colony of Great Britain. This did not end until 1947. Right, so I would like to speak briefly about the caste system in India. I feel like this is necessary for understanding present-day political issues in India. So the caste system is a hierarchy which is fluid but may dictate profession, access to education, and religious privileges depending on social rank. It has its roots in Hindu religious tradition, but scholars argue that on the ground, perceptions of the origin of the caste system differ among populations. Caste transcends Hinduism. Applications of the caste system go beyond Hindu populations, and its rules of hierarchy also apply to, and at times, within Muslim, Christian, and other religious populations in the subcontinent. The caste system was made more formalized and codified during the rule of the British Raj. Although made illegal in the 1949 Constitution of India, the caste system still presents today in many ways. Present-day affirmative action efforts, such as quotas and reserved seats for parliament, jobs, and university admissions, are ways to navigate caste discrimination in India. So India gained its independence from Great Britain on August 15, 1947. At the same time that this happened, there was a partition of India in which the present-day areas of Bangladesh and Pakistan were split from what was colonial India and given their own countries. The structure of Indian government is a bit like that of the United States in that there's a separation of power. It differs in that they have a parliamentary system where the prime minister is the main leader of their government. They also have a president as well, but the president of India has a different role than that of the United States. Their president is a largely ceremonial figure who takes advice from the prime minister except in times of emergency or in absence of the prime minister. The president also is the commander-in-chief of the Indian Armed Forces. They also appoint the Supreme Court justices after conferring with the Lok Sabha and can call for parliamentary elections when in need of prime minister. The legislative system is bicameral. They have an upper chamber called the Rajya Sabha. It has 250 members that are elected for 6 years by legislative assemblies of the states and territories. The lower chamber, called the House of the People, Lok Sabha, their members are directly elected by voters in the population. And they represent districts of states. The judicial branch is the Supreme Court, and they are considered the defenders of the Constitution. They are the highest court of appeal, and it uses a common law system like that in Britain and the United States. India's constitution was ratified in 1949 and is considered the supreme law of the land. The Constitution sets up the government and explains the rights and responsibilities of the citizens. The Constitution contains fundamental rights which promise citizens equality, religious freedom, freedom of language, and freedom against exploitation. And currently there are 128 amendments to the Indian Constitution. The newest was passed in September 2023. The new amendment guarantees reserved seats for women in both houses of the parliament, fulfilling a 33% gender quota. So India has a federal system. They have 28 states and 8 union territories, and there's a central government supremacy over the states. All right, political parties. In India, there are 2 main parties, the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, and the Indian Congress Party. The Bharatiya Janata Party is economically conservative and socially conservative. They're a Hindu nationalist party that supports Hindutva, which is ridding India of secular elements and emphasizing Hinduism's importance to the nation as well as lawmaking. They believe in small government, economic liberalization, the dissolution of the welfare state, and they're anti-labor organization. The Indian National Congress Party is a center/center-left party. They're economically centric and socially liberal. They support secularism, equality for all castes and religions, and traditionally they supported a mixed economy with some socialist reforms and policies, but since the 1990s they have supported more economic liberalism. There are also several other parties recognized at the national level, but they don't have the level of support or the percentages of representatives as the BJP or the Indian National Congress Party. At the state level, there are around 60 different state level parties with diverse platforms. So in India, you only have to get something like 2% of the vote for your party to be considered a legitimate party by the state. The Indian Prime Minister is Narendra Modi. He has been the Prime Minister since 2014. He's part of the BJP party. He supports financial deregulation of banking and insurance sectors, and he emphasizes attracting foreign investment to India. Socially, he advocates making India a religious Hindu state. He has been accused of democratic backsliding and silencing critics. While the Indian president doesn't have as large a role as the prime minister, I thought it was worth mentioning that India's president is the first scheduled tribal caste president, as well as the second woman president in India. Her name is Draupadi Murmu, and she has been the president since 2022. She is a former teacher, and she is known for her efforts to improve tribal education and tribal representation within the government. And she states that economic development for women is one of her policy goals. So while right now current political issues in India are numerous, I had to pick a few. And I'll start with the growth of Hindu nationalism. Under Prime Minister Modi, there's a feeling of unrest between the Hindu majority and the Muslim minority. There's a growth in the epidemic of violence against women, in which women are asking for legislative remedies to the violence against women that exists in India. There's a suppression of free speech in India growing under Prime Minister Modi, which journalists, activists, and opposition politicians are being silenced. There's growing regional unrest as South Indian states are protesting inequalities in federal fund allocation from the central government. And Modi is responding that there's a dangerous north-south divide that's being created. This photo here is showing the Chief Minister of the South Indian state of Karnataka protesting the central government's fund allocation, and these signs are addressing Modi, asking why his state has not received the promised funding for drought relief. So basically the tax funds were allocated to all the states in India, and the south regions of India and the states there received less funding than the northern states in India. And Prime Minister Modi is from the north of India, so the south is alleging that they're being mistreated by the central government. Okay, so this is a story that's getting a lot of attention lately. This is the Babri Mosque and the Lord Ram Temple. Outrage and shock is spreading in India as a new temple dedicated to the Hindu deity Ram is open on the site of the former Babri Mosque. The new temple is built on what Hindus believe to be the birthplace of Lord Ram. The former mosque was constructed in the 16th century but was destroyed in 1992 by a Hindu nationalist mob. The press and the international community see the Indian government's use of military equipment to bless a Hindu ceremony as a bold stamp of approval towards the Hindu nationalist agenda. This may also be crossing a dangerous line between the separation of church and state in what is supposed to be a secular government in India. Muslim spectators observed that there is an attitude of Hindu triumphalism at the site of their demolished mosque. So the Babri Mosque was demolished in 1992 by Hindus who wanted to build a temple there because they believed it was the birthplace of Sri Ram, one of their deities. Since then, nothing has been on that site, but since Prime Minister Modi took office, people felt newly emboldened to finally build a temple on the site of the demolished mosque. And in the photo, it's a picture of the Indian Air Force showering flower petals on the site of the mosque where all of this fighting and drama has taken place. So this is considered basically like a huge metaphor for the rising of Hindu nationalism in India and the persecution of Muslims, and kind of rubbing it in their face that Hinduism has triumphed and we're no longer a multi-ethnic state, and that the state is sponsoring Hinduism as an official religion. So that's the significance of the Babri Mosque and Lord Ram Temple political issue. Great. Well, thank you for watching my presentation. I might have run over the time. I'm so sorry about that. Thank you so much.